kind of touched on a little bit about raising your family here. Do you kind of get the sense that was a pretty widespread feeling around different neighborhoods in Keizer? Do you feel like this was a typical Keizer neighborhood?
Based on the friends that we have all over Keizer, I think it really is. Keizer is such a welcoming, family-friendly community. It was so easy to get involved and connected with other parents. I was involved with Indoor Park, which was up at the Keizer Christian Church, is up on Wheatland.
Okay.
And it was a great place where the kids could run around inside, have all those big toys that nobody has room for in their house, and just kind of share the space.
Mm-hmm.
But we've always found that Keizer has been wonderful for children and raising a family.
Mm-hmm.
What we didn't experience was the public schools. We chose to homeschool our kids, and there's a big homeschool community here. So there were lots of opportunities for us to get together with other families and do activities. We did math team, which was the Math 24 Challenge, which was a district-wide competition. And one year we won.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
Wow.
And many years we placed. We had a lot of kids that placed.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the theater in Portland, did sports and music. We even had a homeschool bowling team called the Holy Rollers.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
The
Down
Holy
at Town and
Rollers.
Country Bowl.
Holy Rollers.
Yes, we did that.
Wow. That's a cool name. Is it Town and Country?
It was down at Town and Country, yeah.
So at what point were you thinking, you know what, I want to serve Keizer in some way? I'm beyond the homeschooling, as far as city or maybe doing city government.
Mm-hmm.
How and when did that start festering in you, or kind of when did the idea kind of get going within you?
I was interested in city government actually in Corvallis. I was involved with the League of Women Voters there, and a lot of women leaders were in that chapter. I was just starting to get involved and learn more about communities and city government when we moved to Keizer, and it wasn't long before I found it's really easy to get involved with community government, city government here. One of my first forays was backyard burning. I was stunned when I moved here, and the people behind me were torching these huge piles of brush. And I have breathing difficulties and asthma now, and that was not a good idea from my point of view. And I had the privilege of being on the first task force with a very experienced city councilor, Jerry McGee.
Oh, really?
And I watched how he problem solved. He brought people together. He looked at the entire problem, not just the backyard burning, but what do we really need to do? Take care of yard debris. Well, that means we need to bring in the garbage haulers. How do we do that? And so he was able to put together the whole package, banning the one, but solving the problem for the others. I learned so much from that experience. My next jump in was with community policing. And you may have heard me the other night, when we were looking at the truancy ordinance, and the day curfew was a very hot topic nationwide for homeschool families. We were finding that in some communities, some law enforcement was getting a little enthusiastic about enforcing day curfews and taking homeschool students, real homeschool students, into custody and so forth when they were on legitimate business. When I heard it come up here, I got involved, and I ended up on the team that wrote the standard operating procedures, the SOPs, for our police.
Oh, okay.
So that was a really good way for me to learn how Keizer works, and that volunteering and getting involved and having a voice is, by showing up, you can do that. You can really make a difference, and I had that chance to do that. And it was through that process I met Counselor Jackie Moyer. So I started getting more involved there, and I got involved with budget. I was a board of directors member for CCTV, and it's about the time we were looking at Keizer pulling out of the Cable Regulatory Commission, the CRC, RCRC, not the Columbia River Crossing, not to get those acronyms mixed up. And I was concerned about how Keizer was budgeting, because one of the reasons we were pulling out was because of the cost involved. So I started showing up to budget meetings. Well, here's the warning. If you show up one year, the next year you may be on the committee, and that's exactly what happened. I was the only person in the audience, aside from the reporter from the Keizertimes. So we shared a written book of the budget. We kibitzed together and kind of read it through and followed along in the meeting. And the next year, I was appointed to the committee.
So is that a warning or a promise or?
Take it either way. Yeah.
So this is, as I recall from the truancy discussion recently, I think that was 95. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. Yes.
So this budget committee then was after that?
I got on the budget committee in, I want to say 2002.
Okay.
Because about 2000, 2001 was when I was appointed to the CCTV Board of Directors, Capital Community Television. And Keizer withdrew shortly thereafter. The board chose to keep me on that, on the CCTV board, even though Keizer was no longer a member.
Okay.
Because community television as a whole is such an important part of how we can connect and have a local voice. And they wanted to keep the Keizer voice on there, even though we were not officially part of the Cable Regulatory Commission any longer.
Right.
And I stayed on that board, as a matter of fact, until I was elected to council. They have a rule that if you're an elected official, you cannot be on that board.
Okay.
So you don't end up with conflicts of interest.
So speaking of Keizer City Council, you'd done the budget committee, you met some people, you met people like Jeremy Gee, you'd worked with different people on this task force with the police about truancy. Mm-hmm. At what point did Keizer City Council become an option for you or become a thought for you?
It came, I think it was about 2004 when Mike Gaynor talked to me about running for his seat. And I was interested. I knew that it was going to offer some tremendous opportunities. But at that point, my children were too young, and I was still homeschooling all of them. My oldest didn't graduate from high school until 2005, so I knew that that wasn't an option. Mm-hmm. I saw the work that Mike and the other counselors put in, and I knew that if I was going to do it, I wanted to be all in. So it was too soon. 2 years later, Jackie Moyer approached me about running for her seat. And at that point, 2 of my children had graduated or were getting close. Mm-hmm. And because Alex graduated in 2007. So at that point I said yes.
So this was 2 years after Mike Gaynor approached you?
Yeah.
So you get 2 kids who are done or almost done with high school, 2 more to go, and now you're diving into city council business.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
It was that was a tremendous year. That was the year I turned 50. And I've likened turning 50 to the year of Jubilee. In the Old Testament, talked about when it was a 50-year anniversary where it was kind of like a reset. It was a year of celebration, of embracing change. And that's what it was like for me. It was a tremendous growing opportunity. I was working part-time for a company in Salem, homeschooling my last 2 children. My husband retired from Marion County Fire District in 2007. I was having to do the math on that one, so it was in 2007. A lot of changes happened for us about the same time, so it was a phenomenal opportunity to learn about myself, learn about how I could serve, explore, just learn about what it was going to be to serve our community and to learn about more aspects of our community than I already knew. Mm-hmm. So I spent that first year to 18 months on a real steep learning curve. And that's with, attending meetings in 2006. I was there, all the council meetings I could, in person. Mm-hmm. I wanted to just absorb the culture, absorb the information, listen to the counselors and how they operated so I could be better prepared to come on board in 2007.
Even with that, when you did start in council, did you feel like you were prepared? Did you feel like, I know what I'm doing here? Or did that take a while?
Even with all the preparation, there's still more to learn. And it's like you're getting ready, but when you sit in that seat, there's a real change. And you find out what you don't know, and you take the opportunity. I took the opportunity to really dig in and learn that first year. Add to what I'd already done in advance. I didn't presume that I've got this locked. I know how it goes. I've watched. I'm good. I can jump in. It's like watching a football game and playing it. I've been in what Jim Taylor colorfully calls the cheap seats. Even as a candidate, you're still in the cheap seats. Once you're on the field, it's a whole different perspective. And there were a lot of tough meetings. I had to learn how that operates. And I had to learn to listen more deeply. And that's been one of the things I treasure from my last 8 years, is learning to listen more deeply.
What did that look like for you?
It looked like, well, let me put it the way Jackie Moyer did. She goes, "You're a teacher. You come across as a teacher. Slow down and listen." Okay. And I've practiced that. I've taken the time to slow down, because I know the answer. I know, I've got this. Pick me, teacher, pick me. And maybe not. Maybe I haven't listened all the way through. What I tell people now is I try to listen deeply enough to get to the nugget. Because in what somebody is saying, an idea, a thought, a fear, a concern, there's a nugget in there. And if I listen long enough and well enough, I try to get to the nugget. There's some little nugget of gold in there where we're going to be able to connect, problem solve, agree to disagree, something. But I want to listen to get to the nugget. And that's not by nature, that's been by practice.
So as you're learning this, your kids are still growing and getting through high school and all that. You're still doing the tutoring at the time, right?
Right.
How hard was that to balance being a mom with now you got teenagers in the house, you're still doing tutoring, and at the same time you got a pretty drastic change in having to have a totally different mindset for how to be on council. How were you able to balance that, and how did the kids handle you going through this change?
My kids were very supportive. I've told everybody, if you're going to run for council, if you're going to serve in this capacity, your family has absolutely got to be on board. I know that there's no way I could have done this without them being all in. There's been times that we've really had to sit back and do a reset on scheduling, getting overcommitted, not communicating on schedules, and so forth. It's a challenge. But there has to be that agreed upon understanding that we're all in. This is a family undertaking. There may be one person in the seat, but the whole family's involved one way or another. And it's a service to the community by the whole family. So one of the questions that keeps coming up is, why don't more people run? That's one of the reasons. This is a huge commitment. And we want people to know that they can give that level of service, that kind of commitment to our community, because quite frankly, I believe that the people of Keizer don't deserve anything less. We want a team that is committed to the entire 37,000 people in our community. And that takes time, that takes a lot of emotional energy, and the family really has got to be on board. My kids are real proud of me. They tell me And they've even liked my Facebook page and occasionally comment, not very often.
Now you mentioned when you were first approached to do this, you mentioned the family concerns you had. Kids weren't old enough.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people in Keizer are in that situation now. What would you tell them as far as, and you've been in their shoes,
Mm-hmm.
you were asked when you weren't ready for it, what do you tell them, maybe some people who haven't asked or haven't thinking about it, but they've got 3 or 4 young kids in the house?
Mm-hmm.
You've been through that. What would you say to people who are wondering that right now?
I would ask them to look at a level of involvement that they can handle with their current schedule. Rather than jumping in at the council level, get involved in the committee. If there's an issue that you're interested in, like I was interested in community policing, I was interested in our budget, so I got involved in that level. And I learned about how our community operates, and I met people, and so when the time came and I was asked to run for council, I had a better understanding of how our city works. So I would encourage them to find something they're really interested in, and if at all possible, like with homeschooling, we could bring our kids along. They could see how things work, field trips and study right alongside. And it's a tremendous opportunity for our children to understand our commitment to civic engagement in a democratic society.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to be self-governing, then ourselves better be governing. And what better way for our young people to learn than to learn alongside us?